Catelyn Stark had thought herself hollow before, but she had not known the full shape of emptiness until the ravens came. The first had been a creature of wet feathers and red-eyed exhaustion, its message sealed in dark wax and smudged from rain. It arrived near dusk, when the river mists crawled up the walls of Riverrun, and the torches along the battlements burned with small, stubborn flames. Men were shouting in the yards below, calling for fresh straw, fresh arrows, fresh horseshoes, fresh hope, as if any of those things could be hammered into shape by command. Riverrun still lived. That was what they said. The castle stood, the rivers guarded her flanks, the banners of House Tully flew above her towers, and in the cells beneath her stones, the Kingslayer breathed in chains. The castle lived, but Catelyn felt something in her had stopped. She read the words once, then again, then a third time, though each reading only carved them more deeply into her. Winterfell taken, Sir Roderick slain, Theon Greyjoy turned cloak, Bran and Rickon dead, or believed dead, their bodies burned beyond knowing. It was the sort of message war made common. Castles fell, men betrayed, children died. Lords put ink to parchment and called catastrophe tidings. Yet those ink strokes were her sons. Bran, who had once climbed so high that the whole world seemed to be beneath him. Rickon, fierce and wild and small, with hair always tangled and cheeks always flushed from running. She tried to picture their faces and found instead only blackened shapes, two little shadows in a ruined northern yard. She had not screamed. That was what frightened her afterward. She had not torn her hair, had not collapsed before Edmure, had not cursed the Seven or the old gods or the river that had carried the raven to her. She had folded the message with care. She had placed it on the table before her. She had asked for Brienne. Now she knelt in the sept of Riverrun with the smell of wax and rain around her, and the gods looked down with painted faces that promised nothing. The father held his scales. The mother gazed with soft, blind mercy. The warrior stood ready with sword uplifted. The maiden was young and untouched by grief. The smith bent over a hammer. The crone lifted her lantern. The stranger waited in shadow, neither cruel nor kind. Catelyn had prayed to them all in turn until her knees ached. She had prayed as a girl at Riverrun when she wanted Pettier Baelish to recover from Brendan Stark's blade. She had prayed as a bride in Winterfell when the cold stone gods of Ned's people seemed too ancient and silent to understand her southern heart. She had prayed when Bran fell. She had prayed when Ned rode south. She had prayed when Ned died. Each prayer had been sent upward like a candle flame, and each had burned down to smoke. Behind her, Mael shifted softly. "My lady," Brienne said. Catelyn did not turn. "Did I bid you speak?" "No, my lady." "Then why do you?" The girl was silent for a moment. Catelyn could hear the rain tapping the colored glass. It made the candle flames lean and shiver. "Because if I do not speak now," Brienne said at last, "I fear you may do something you cannot call back." The words struck close enough that Catelyn almost laughed. It would have been a terrible sound in that holy place. She had been thinking of Jaime Lannister since the Raven came. Not in words at first. In images. Golden hair under torchlight. A smile like a drawn knife. A man who had pushed Bran from a tower and put a sword through Ned's men in the streets of King's Landing. A man who had sat in his cell beneath Riverrun and mocked honor because honor had not saved anyone he feared. He had sisters. He had a father. He had a brother. He had a son upon the Iron Throne, though the realm called that son Robert Baratheon's get, and Catelyn knew better. He had value, more value alive than any lord in Robb's host, perhaps more than Robb himself in the cold arithmetic of war. A golden hostage, a lion in chains, a key to a door Catelyn could not open any other way. Sansa was in King's Landing. Arya was gone, swallowed by war and rumor, but Catelyn had not yet learned how to stop hoping. A mother did not cease to be a mother because the world found her inconvenient. "I thought of sending him south," Catelyn said. Brienne's breathing changed. Not out a gasp. The girl was too disciplined for that, but Catelyn heard it all the same. "With me?" Brienne asked. "You gave me your sword." "I did." "You swore to obey me." "I did." "And if I commanded you to take Jaime Lannister to King's Landing and exchange him for my daughters?" Brienne stood straight as a spear. "Then I would obey." The answer should have comforted her. Instead, it made her colder. Catelyn rose slowly. Her knees complained. She had eaten little that day and less the day before, and grief made the body strangely distant, as if her limbs belonged to another woman. "Even if it meant betraying your king. Robb Stark is my king because you named him so before me, my lady. I have no other king." "No." "That is not an answer. It is the only answer I have." Catelyn turned then. Brienne looked younger in candlelight. The harsh planes of her face softened, though not enough to spare her from the world's cruelties. She was broad of shoulder, awkward in stillness, hands too large for courtly grace, eyes too earnest for the games of lords. Catelyn had once thought her merely strange. Then she had watched the girl stand among Renly Baratheon's laughing knights and love him with a loyalty so naked it hurt to see. Since then, Catelyn had thought her something rarer than beauty. "True. Would you call it betrayal?" Catelyn asked. Brienne's mouth tightened. She took too long to answer. "There are words for what men do in war," she said. "Exchange, ransom, treaty, treason, mercy. They can make the same act sound different depending on who speaks them. And what word would you choose?" "I would say it was a mother trying to save her children." Catelyn closed her eyes. For a heartbeat, she was not in Riverrun. She was in Winterfell's yard, watching Bran climb where he should not, hearing Ned say his name with that soft northern warning he used when love and command were one. She was in the nursery with Rickon screaming red-faced in the cradle while Robb laughed, and Sansa covered her ears and Arya tried to climb in beside him. She was at the feast table with all 5 of them alive, Jon Snow quiet at the edge of things, Ned's gray eyes warm across the hall. A mother trying to save her children. And what would Robb say? Brienne did not answer. Catelyn opened her eyes. What would the Great Jon say? What would Lord Karstark say? What would Edmure say? What would the Blackfish say? Nunda. My lady, what would Tywin Lannister say? Catelyn asked, and there was the bitter root of it. He would say I had given him back his son because grief made me foolish. He would say women are weak. He would say a mother's heart is a door through which an army can march. Brienne's face flushed. He would say anything that served him. Yes, Catelyn said, and sometimes monsters speak truly when truth is useful. She walked past Brienne and out of the sept. The hall beyond was cold, and the guards posted there straightened at the sight of her. Riverrun felt different now, every passage narrower, every stair longer, every torch weaker against the dark. The castle of her childhood had become a war camp. Men slept under cloaks in corridors where she had once chased Lysa with ribbons in her hair. Spears leaned against walls where musicians had played. The smell of damp wool and old blood clung even where servants had scrubbed the stones. She did not go to her chambers. Sleep would not come there. Nor did she go to Edmure, who would offer comfort too loudly because he feared silence. She descended instead. The way to the cells beneath Riverrun was known to her from girlhood, though she had never liked it. Her father had taken her there once when she was small, after a river brigand had been captured raiding Tully boats. Hoster Tully had believed in teaching his children what lordship meant. Not merely feasts and banners. Not merely marriages and songs. Justice had stone walls, iron rings, straw that stank, and men who begged. The stair curved downward. The air grew colder. Brienne followed without being told. 2 guards stood at the lower door, both Mallister men with purple cloaks darkened by moisture. They bowed stiffly. My lady, one said. Open it. The man hesitated only a fraction. Enough for Catelyn to notice. Enough for Brienne's hand to drift near her sword. The keys came out. Iron turned. Hinges groaned. Jaime Lannister was awake. He sat against the wall with one knee raised, wrists chained but posture careless. As though the cell were a poor inn he endured only until better rooms could be arranged. Torchlight gave his hair a duller gold. Captivity had thinned his face, sharpened his cheekbones, grown his beard rough along his jaw. Yet he remained handsome in a way that seemed almost insolent. Some men diminished in chains. Jaime wore them like a temporary insult. He smiled when he saw her. "Lady Stark," he said. "Or should I call you your Gracie's Lady Mother? I never know the proper courtesies for rebels." Catelyn stepped inside. Brienne came with her. The guards remained at the door. "You heard the raven," Jaime said. There was no question in it. Catelyn looked at him, and for the first time since reading the message she felt something hotter than grief. "Which raven? The one that put murder in your eyes?" Brienne shifted. Jaime's smile deepened. "Careful, wench," he said. "That sword looks heavy. You might strain something." "Be silent," Brienne said. "Gods, I do miss court." The conversation was worse, but at least the insults had lace on them. Catelyn moved closer until only the reach of his chain separated them. "My sons are dead." Jaime's expression changed. Not much. With him, not much was often all there was to read. The smile faded to something flatter, warier. "So they say." "So they say," Catelyn repeated. "Your sister's creature took my home, betrayed my son, murdered my people, and burned my children. Theon Greyjoy was never my sister's creature. Cersei has better taste in pets. You think this is a jest? I think if I begin taking blame for every fool who wants a crown, I'll need a larger cell." Jaime tilted his head. "But no, I do not jest about dead children. You tried to kill one." His eyes met hers. There it was between them, as alive as any third person in the room. Bran's broken body, his little hand limp in hers, his wolf howling under the window. She had known in that way mothers know before proofs and counsels and trials. She had known the Lannisters had done it. Tyrion's dagger had misled her, yes, but not about the rot at the heart of them. Jaime had been in Winterfell. Jaime and Cersei. Bran had climbed. Bran had fallen. "I did," Jaime said. Brienne's breath caught. Catelyn had expected denial, mockery, some quick twist of words. She had not expected the plainness of it, and the plainness struck her harder than any lie. "Why?" she asked, though she knew part of it. Jaime's mouth curled, but without humor. "For love." "For love," Catelyn said. "You would murder a child for love?" "The things we do," he said softly. For a moment, the cell seemed to tilt. She could have called the guards. She could have ordered them to bring a sword. She could have ended him there and then, and perhaps some part of the world would have righted itself. The mother would understand, surely. The warrior. Even the stranger. But then Sansa's face rose before her. Sansa in silk, surrounded by enemies, learning with every breath that songs lie. Arya, wherever she was, perhaps cold, perhaps hungry, perhaps dead in some ditch with no name on her lips but home. Robb in the field, carrying a crown heavier than any boy should bear. The North bleeding. The Riverlands burning. Tywin Lannister waiting for one mistake. Jaime watched her. He understood enough. That was another cruelty. "You came to free me," he said. Brienne looked at Catelyn. "No," Catelyn said. The words surprised even her. It seemed to settle in the cell like a stone dropped into deep water. Jaime's eyes narrowed. "No?" he echoed. "No. That is a shame. I had begun composing gallant speeches. You will not be sent to King's Landing. You will not be exchanged in secret. You will not ride from this castle under my seal while my son's war hangs by a thread." The smile returned, slower this time. "So the wolf pup keeps his lion. The king in the north keeps his hostage. Hostages are useful while men believe you will kill them." Jaime leaned forward as far as his chains allowed. "Would you kill me, Lady Stark?" Catelyn looked at the iron about his wrists. The golden head bowed just enough to mock submission, the green eyes bright with challenge. She thought of Ned, who had hated killing but never turned from duty. She thought of her father telling her that mercy without strength was only permission for evil to continue. She thought of Robb, who still had to learn how costly every choice became once men called you king. "If I must," she said. Jaime studied her for a long moment, and the mockery slipped again. Not gone, never gone, but buried deeper. "Then perhaps there is a wolf in you after all." Catelyn turned to the guards. "Double the watch. No man enters alone. No wine, no dice. No keys carried by one hand only. Any message for the prisoner comes through me, Sir Edmure or Sir Brynden." The older guard nodded. "Yes, my lady. And send for my uncle." When she left the cell, Jaime called after her, "Lady Stark." She paused, though she did not turn. "If your girls are alive, my father will use them. I know. If you kill me, he will kill them. I know. If you keep me, he may still kill them." Now she looked back. Jaime's face was shadowed between the bars. For once, he did not look like a song's golden knight or a court's smiling monster. He looked like a man making sure she understood the rules of the pit into which they had all fallen. "Yes," Catelyn said, "but while I keep you, he must think first." Sir Brynden Tully came before midnight, smelling of rain and horse and the river wind. He had been on the walls, as he often was, because old soldiers trusted stone less when they were not standing upon it. His cloak was dark with wet, his graying hair plastered close to his skull, and the black fish clasp at his shoulder gleamed like a wet scale. He looked at Catelyn once and knew enough not to offer comfort. That had always been his gift. Edmure loved loudly. Her father ruled heavily. Lysa had felt everything as if the world were a needle pressed against her skin. Brynden looked, measured, and said what needed saying. "They tell me you went below," he said. "I did. And the lion still has his head? For now." The blackfish removed his gloves finger by finger. They were in her father's solar, though Hoster Tully no longer ruled from it. Illness had reduced him to a breathing memory upstairs, drifting in and out of years, calling for dead women and old mistakes. The solar remained as he had liked it. Maps, river charts, ledgers, old swords, a carved trout above the mantel. The fire was too small for the damp. Or perhaps Catelyn was too cold to be warmed. Brienne stood near the door. Catelyn had not dismissed her. She did not know whether that was because she trusted the girl, or because she feared what her own solitude might birth. "I nearly sent him away," Catelyn said. Brynden did not pretend ignorance. "For the girls. For Sansa. For Arya, if she lives. If she lives, she's not in King's Landing." "No, but Sansa is." He moved to the map table, where river roads and castles lay under small carved markers. Lions, wolves, trout, Frey towers, stags painted in the colors of dead claimants. Men made war with tokens because the real bodies would not fit on the table. "If you had done it," Brynden said, "Karstark would have called for your head. I know. Edmure would have blustered himself hoarse and then wept over you. I know. The Greyjohn might have laughed first, then broken something." Despite herself, Catelyn almost smiled. "I know. Robb would have forgiven you in his heart and cursed you in council. That would have hurt him worst of all." The almost smile died. Brynden looked up from the map. "You did not do it." "No." "Good." The word should have comforted her. Instead, it made her feel judged, though he had meant no cruelty. "Good? My daughters remain prisoners. Your daughters remain alive because Jaime remains useful." "Do they?" His face softened then. Only a little. "Cat. Doe." There were few left who called her that. Petyr had once. Lysa, when they were girls. Edmure sometimes, but only when frightened. From her uncle, the name felt older than grief. "I keep seeing Bran," she said. "Not burned, not dead, falling. Always falling." Bryndon's jaw tightened. "I keep thinking if I had not gone south," she continued. "If I had stayed in Winterfell. If I had not seized Tyrion. If I had not trusted Pettier. If I had not urged Ned." "Stop." The command cracked through the room. Catelyn stared at him. Bryndon came around the table. "Do not do Tywin Lannister's work for him. He will blame you for enough before this is done." The words landed hard because they were not gentle. Catelyn looked away. The fire hissed as damp wood settled. "Robb needs him," Bryndon said. "Alive. Chained. Seen by enough men to know he is here. Hidden from enough men that no fool can reach him easily. If Tywin believes his son's life depends upon our restraint, then Tywin must practice some restraint of his own." "Nay. Tywin restrained?" Catelyn asked bitterly. "Not from kindness, from calculation. That she believed. Tywin Lannister's heart might have been cast in the same mines as his gold. But even gold bent when the right heat was applied." Bryndon tapped the map near the western roads. "The boy won at Oxcross. Won at the Whispering Wood. Took camps, hostages, honor, fear. But victories do not feed horses, and dead men do not hold castles. The Riverlords are tired. The Northmen want home. Stannis broke against King's Landing, or so the Ravens claim. Renly is ash and flowers. The Tyrells have gone over to Joffrey. If all that is true, your son's crown just grew twice as heavy." "No, Pa." Catelyn knew it. Every piece of news since Ned's death had been a door closing. Robb's victories had been bright as lightning, but lightning did not last. Around him gathered the long dark of politics, marriages, harvests, hostages, roads, debts, pride. The things songs left out. "Then Jaime is worth more than ever," she said. Aye. And more dangerous. Aye. What would you do?" Bryndon glanced at Brienne. With her listening. The girl's face colored faintly, but she held still. "I would move him before dawn," Bryndon said. "Not far. Somewhere deeper, less known. The old water cells under the East Tower were sealed in your grandfather's day. We opened one during the siege for grain stores and never used it. Dry enough now if we lay boards. 2 doors. 1 stair. No window. Miserable but safe. Redman, Ali, Cure. Too miserable and he dies of fever. Then we make it miserable enough for humility and clean enough for ransom. He is still a knight. He is still a sword pointed at your son." Brienne spoke then, low but firm. "A hostage should not be abused." Bryndon looked at her. "I said miserable, not maimed. Humiliation breeds desperate men. Captivity breeds desperate men. Comfort breeds careless guards." Brienne swallowed whatever answer came to her. Catelyn saw the conflict in her plainly. The girl hated Jaime. Anyone with honor should hate Jaime. Yet she also saw a prisoner, and to Brienne that meant duties others found inconvenient. "How many guards?" Catelyn asked. 6 at all hours. Not the same 6. No man with kin slain by Jaime. No man from Carhold. No sellswords. No singer. No septon, unless searched naked by women first. And even then, I'd sooner send him prayers through the door. Catelyn nodded. "Keys?" 3. 1 with me. 1 with Edmure. 1 sealed in your keeping. Not Robb? Robb is in the field. Keys travel poorly in war. Food? Taste it. Messages? None unless we read them first. Visitors. Bryndon gave her a level look. You, if you must. Me, if I must. Edmure, if he insists on proving he can stare at the lion without blinking. The wench, if you trust her sword. "My name is Brienne," the girl said. Bryndon's mouth twitched. "So it is?" Catelyn looked at her. "Will you keep him?" Brienne's brows drew together. Keep him. Not kindly. Not cruelly. Safely. You told me I might do something I could not call back. I did not. Now help me make certain no one else does. Me. The girl's expression changed. It was not pride exactly. Pride was too polished a word. It was the look of someone being given weight and standing under it gladly. I will, Brienne said. On my honor. Brynden studied her for a moment, then nodded once, soldier to soldier. Good. You'll learn the watch schedule from me, not from the guards. You'll sleep near the stair. You'll eat after he eats. If any man asks you to look away, you look harder. Yes, sir. Catelyn moved to the table. The map was a poor comfort, but it gave the eye somewhere to go. Riverrun sat in ink and paint between its rivers. Harrenhal crouched monstrous to the east. The twins held the crossing northward, twin towers like clenched teeth. Beyond lay the long road to Moat Cailin and the Neck, then the north, then Winterfell in ashes. Robb must know, she said. He must. I will send the raven myself. What will you tell him? Catelyn touched the carved wolf that marked her son's host. It had been painted gray, but the paint had chipped along the muzzle. It looked worn, too young to be so worn. The truth, she said, that his hostage remains chained, that his mother nearly failed him and did not, that he must return to Riverrun as soon as he can. Brynden watched her. Leave out the part where you nearly failed him. No. Cat. No, she said again. And this time there was steel enough that he did not interrupt. If I am to counsel him, he must know the shape of my heart. If grief can turn me toward folly once, it can do so again. Better he know than trust a false picture of me. He is your son. He is my king. The room quieted it around that. It was a strange thing to say. Stranger still to mean. Robb had been born red-faced and furious, his little fists clenched as if protesting the indignity of the world. Catelyn had held him before Ned rode south to war and had feared the child would never know his father. She had watched him grow solemn under northern skies, watched him learn to ride, to hunt, to listen at counsels from the shadows. He had been her boy. Then men placed a crown upon him, and every motherly instinct in her had risen against it, because crowns were blades without hilts. Yet, he had worn it. He wore it still. Her king, and she had nearly stolen from him the one prisoner who kept Tywin Lannister cautious. Brynden put his gloves on the table. I'll see to the cell. I will come. No. I said I will come. You've seen enough of him tonight. I am not afraid of Jaime. I know. That is why you should stay here. She wanted to argue. Instead, she was tired. Suddenly and terribly. The kind of tired that seemed older than sleep. Brynden turned to Brienne. Come then. Brienne looked to Catelyn first. Go, Catelyn said, and be careful. Jaime is chained, not harmless. No. When they were gone, she stood alone in her father's solar with the rain at the windows and the map before her. After a while, she sat and drew parchment toward her. The quill felt strange in her fingers. My son, she began. Then she stopped. My king, she wrote instead. The ink glistened black and wet. She told him of the raven from Winterfell. She told him of Bran and Rickon, though each name had to be forced through her hand. She told him that Jaime remained under guard, that she had considered a secret exchange and rejected it, that grief made women and men alike reach for any door with light beneath it. She urged him to return with speed, to trust no promise from the Freys that was not bound in iron. She did not write that she loved him. Not because she did not, but because the word seemed too small and too helpless for what she felt. Love had not kept Ned from the steps of Baelor's Sept. Love had not kept Winterfell from burning. Love had not caught Bran. At the end, she added only, I remain your mother, and I remain your servant. She sanded the letter, sealed it, and pressed the trout of Riverrun into the wax because she had no direwolf seal of her own. Then she sat until the candle burned low, listening to the castle settle around its captive lion. Jaime was moved before dawn. Riverrun had many sounds at morning. The creak of winches raising the water gate, the clatter of pails, the muttered curses of men waking stiff from poor sleep, the cawing of ravens furious at being disturbed. This morning those sounds were muffled under a secrecy that was itself loud to anyone who knew castles. Guards were shifted without explanation. A passage near the east tower was cleared. 2 serving women were sent away from the lower kitchens. A drunk groom who wandered too near the wrong stair was cuffed unconscious by a Tully sergeant and dragged somewhere harmless to sleep it off. Catelyn watched from beneath a hooded cloak in the shadow of an arch. Brynden had chosen the hour well. Too early for most lords, too late for those who kept night watches to be fully sharp. He came first with 4 picked men, all older, all Riverlanders who had lost coin and cousins in the war, but not sons to Jaime's sword. Brienne followed. Then came Jaime, wrists chained, ankles linked, 2 guards at his sides and 2 behind. He walked carefully, but not meekly. There was a rhythm to him even bound, some memory of grace no iron could quite smother. He saw Catelyn. "New chambers?" he asked. "You spoil me." Catelyn said nothing. The passage took them down, then down again, beneath rooms she had known as a girl, and into spaces the castle kept like old secrets. Riverrun had been built for siege, and every generation of Tullys had added some precaution against hunger, fire, treachery, or flood. There were storage vaults dug into the stone, hidden wells, murder holes above corridors, shafts where sound carried strangely, and doors that looked like walls if no one showed you the latch. The cell Brynden had chosen lay beyond 2 such doors in a narrow turn where only 1 man could pass at a time. The old water cell was not underwater now. The Red Fork had been diverted from that lower channel decades before, leaving damp stone and a chill that never left. Boards had been laid over the floor. Fresh straw had been spread. A pallet stood against one wall, a bucket in the corner, a small table, a stool. Chains hung from an iron ring set deep into the masonry. Jaime looked around. "I have slept in worse inns." "You will not be sleeping in inns again soon," Brynden said. "Never make promises to a prisoner. He has little to do but remember them." Brynden ignored that. He supervised the chaining himself, testing each lock, each ring, each length of iron. Jaime submitted with an air of bored amusement until Brienne fastened the last cuff. Then he turned his head slightly. "You have a gentle touch for such large hands." Brienne's face remained still. "I have chained horses who complained less." Jaime laughed. It echoed badly in the stone chamber. Catelyn stepped inside after the guards withdrew to the outer door. Brynden stayed near the threshold. Brienne remained between prisoner and lady, though Jaime's chains would not let him reach either. "Am I to thank you?" Jaime asked. "For what?" "Not killing me. Not freeing me. Not feeding me to Karstarks. You Starks have so many forms of courtesy. It is hard to choose the proper response. Nay, you may thank me by being silent. That seems a poor bargain. Silence is all I have in abundance. You have your life, for the moment, and my daughters may have theirs because of it." Jaime leaned back against the wall. "You still hope for both?" "Yes." "Good. Hope is cheaper than ransom." Catelyn's grief stirred, but this morning it found less purchase. The decision had been made. It had not brought peace, but it had given shape to the pain. Shape could be born. "You will be kept here until my son commands otherwise." "Your son commands much for a boy whose own castle burned while he hunted lions." Brynden moved first. Brienne's hand found her sword. Catelyn raised one hand and both stopped. "Speak of Winterfell again," she said, "and you will learn how thin courtesy becomes in a mother's hands." Jaime looked at her, and for a moment she saw calculation pass across his face. He had spent his life among courtiers, kings, madmen, liars, killers. He knew where to press and when to stop. He stopped. As you say, my lady, you will be fed. You will be permitted water, blankets, and a maester if illness takes you. You will not be beaten unless you force the guards to subdue you. You will not receive letters. You will not send letters. You will not speak privately with any person in this castle. Not even you. Least of all me. That made him smile again. Wise. Brynden gave a quiet snort. Catelyn turned to the guards. If Lord Karstark or any of his men come here, you bar the door. If they come with steel, you sound the horn. If they come with orders from anyone but Sir Brynden, Sir Edmure, myself, or the king, you bar the door. If they come claiming to bear orders from one of us, you send one man to verify and let no one pass until he returns. If they come with my own face and I do not bear the seal you are shown now, you bar the door. Me. Day. Gamal. She held up the small strip of blue silk sealed with wax she had prepared, marked with the trout and cut in a jagged line. Brynden held the matching half. The guards nodded. One looked nervous. Good. Nervous men lived longer than comfortable ones. Jaime eyed the broken seal. You have done this before. My father ruled the Riverlands. I watched. Did Lord Hoster teach all his daughters how to keep prisoners? No. He taught us that family, duty, and honor are not words to be placed in any order one pleases. Something flickered in Jaime's eyes at family. That was the word that held him, perhaps. Not honor. Not duty. Family. The Lannisters wore theirs like armor until it became a cage. Catelyn left him there with the damp and the dark. By noon, Riverrun knew. No castle could keep a secret entirely. It could only decide which shape the secret wore when it walked the halls. The tale that spread was this. Lady Catelyn had gone to the Kingslayer in grief, had heard him mock her dead sons, and had ordered him sealed deeper than before. Some said she had struck him. She had not. Some said Brienne had drawn steel. She had nearly. Some said the Blackfish had promised Jaime's head to the crows if Tywin harmed Sansa. He had said no such thing aloud, but men enjoyed giving their commanders better lines. The result was useful enough. By the time Edmure stormed into the Solar with his hair uncombed and his face flushed, half the garrison believed Jaime had been nearly freed, and then condemned to rot forever. That was better than the truth and worse than a lie. Why was I not woken? Edmure demanded. Brynden, who was eating bread and onions with the calm of a man who had slept 3 hours and needed no more, looked up. Because you shout before breakfast. I am Lord of Riverrun. Hey, and the whole castle is grateful for the reminder. Edmure's flush deepened. Cat, is it true? You moved him? Without telling me? Nay, Maya. I am telling you now. After. Yes. This is my castle. And Robb's hostage. Our hostage. House Tully bleeds for this war too. I have not forgotten. The hurt in his face came swiftly. Edmure was a man grown, lord in all but the shadow of their dying father. Yet Catelyn could still see the boy who had followed her and Lysa along the riverbank. Always wanting to be included, always too young for the games they had already tired of. He had courage. More than some gave him credit for. But he spent courage too freely because he feared being thought without it. She softened her voice. Brother, I know what Riverrun has paid. I know what you have paid. Then why keep him from me? Because if I came to you last night, you would have tried to comfort me. I would. And I might have let you. That checked him. Brynden brushed crumbs from his fingers. The lion is secure. Better than before. That's what matters. What matters is that Karstark is already speaking of blood, Edmure said. His men are muttering in the yard. They say the Kingslayer should answer for his sons. Nugna, Habiaral. He answers by breathing, Catelyn said. That will not satisfy them. No. Edmure paced to the fire. Lord Karstark came to me before dawn. He asked whether Riverrun had grown so fond of lions that we hid them under our own beds. Brynden laughed. It is not funny, Edmure snapped. It is a little funny. He has near 300 men inside or near our walls, and more in camp with Robb. They are Northmen. They are not mine to command. They are Robb's, Catelyn said. And until Robb returns, no one touches Jaime. Karstark may not wait. Then we must not give him opportunity. Edmure rubbed at his brow. God's cat. I know why you keep him. I do. But every day he lives, he poisons the castle. Men look at him and remember fathers, brothers, sons. They remember the whispering wood. They remember his smile. They ask why the young wolf cages the beast instead of skinning it. Because wolves do not win wars by eating every piece on the board, Brynden said. Edmure glared at him. And fish do. Fish survive by knowing when the river is deeper than it looks. Catelyn almost wished they would continue quarreling. It was familiar, and familiar things were easier than grief. But there was no time for old family rhythms. I have written to Robb, she said. Until he answers, we hold. And if Tywin harms Sansa, the room went quiet. Edmure regretted the words at once. She saw it. He took one step toward her, then stopped. I am sorry, he said. Catelyn folded her hands inside her sleeves. If Tywin harms Sansa, Jaime becomes less useful. And then we decide what justice remains to us. No one spoke after that. Outside, the rain slackened. In the yard below, a horn blew once for riders at the gate. Catelyn went to the window and looked down. Mud, horses, men in dark cloaks. Not Robb. Not yet. A small party from one of the river lords by their colors, come with complaints, losses, requests. Everyone came to Riverrun wanting something now. Grain. Orders. Vengeance. Reassurance that the war still had a shape. Catelyn watched the riders dismount and wondered when she had become a woman others looked to for answers she did not have. Lord Rickard Karstark did not come to Catelyn until evening. That, more than his anger, told her he was dangerous. Angry men rushed. Grieving men staggered. Men who waited had either mastered themselves or found purpose in their fury. Rickard entered the hall while supper was being cleared, his beard forked and gray, his long face carved by northern severity. He had the look of a tree struck by lightning but not yet fallen, blackened within, standing only because roots were stubborn things. His sons had died at Jaime's hand. Torrhen and Eddard Karstark, young men who had ridden south for Robb and never ridden north again. Catelyn remembered them dimly from the first mustering, tall and solemn, trying not to stare at the southern halls of Riverrun, as if they were children at a mummer's show. One had blushed when Rosalind Frey smiled at him. The other had given Bran a carved wooden horse during the king's visit to Winterfell years before. She remembered that suddenly, and wished she had not. Karstark bowed to her. Barely. My lady. My lord. He did not sit. Neither did she. Brienne stood behind Catelyn's chair. The hall was not empty, but it had thinned. Servants moved quietly at the edges, practiced in pretending not to hear what Lord said. 2 Tully guards stood by the doors. Too few, perhaps. Or too many. Insult was measured in numbers. I ask leave to see the prisoner, Karstark said. No. The bluntness made his eyes narrow. I am a lord of the north. You are. My sons died taking him. They did. Then I have earned the right to look upon the man who slew them. Catelyn felt the weight of every listening ear. Rights are not earned by grief alone. His face hardened. Spoken by one whose grief is answered with guards and locks. There it was. Not a blade, but meant to cut. Catelyn stood very still. Karstark's voice deepened. I had 2 sons left to me when I came south. I sent them into battle under your son's banner. They fought. They died. The Kingslayer cut them down while trying to flee like the Oathbreaker he is. Yet he lives. He eats. He lives. He eats. He mocks from his cell, and now he is hidden deeper, as if his comfort matters more than their blood. His comfort does not matter. Then give him to me. No, day. A murmur passed through the hall and died quickly. Karstark took a step forward. Brienne took one as well. The Northern Lord looked at her with contempt. Will your creature strike me, Lady Stark? My sworn shield will do as honor requires. Honor. He spat the word softly. A southern word, dressed prettily for songs. In the north, we remember. I am of the north. You were born beside these rivers, and I buried my husband for the north. My son wears its crown. My daughters are held because the north rose. Do not tell me what I am, my lord. Karstark stared at her. For a moment, Catelyn thought he might say something unforgivable. Perhaps he thought so too, because his jaw worked and no words came. Then he said, if Eddard Stark were here, the Kingslayer would be dead. It was the cruelest thing he could have chosen because it struck near doubt. Ned had kept Theon Greyjoy as ward and hostage, and treated him kindly. Ned had taken deserters' heads with his own hands because law demanded it. Ned had gone south because Robert asked him. Ned had warned Cersei because mercy demanded it. Ned was dead. That was the measure of honor in this war. My lord husband understood hostages, Catelyn said. My lord father understood justice. Then seek justice from the king he died serving. Karstark's eyes flashed. The king is young. The king is crowned. The king is led by river women and boys drunk on victories. Brienne's sword cleared its scabbard by an inch. Catelyn did not look back. Careful, or what? Will you chain me too? If you threaten the king's peace inside Riverrun, yes. A silence opened, large and astonished. Karstark's men had gathered near the far door now. 3 of them, perhaps 4, dark-haired and hard-faced. Tully guards noticed. Hands shifted toward hilts. The hall became a place made entirely of distances. Between men, between swords and sheaths, between grief and treason. Karstark leaned closer. His voice lowered so only she and Brienne could hear. Your little boys are dead, they say. The world narrowed. Did the Greyjoy give them justice? He asked. Did he let them beg? Did he let them burn quick? Or did they cry for their mother while she guarded the man who crippled one and shamed the house of the other? Catelyn's hand moved before thought. The slap rang through the hall. Rickard Karstark's head turned with it. No one breathed. Her palms stung. She had not struck a grown man since. She could not remember if she ever had. Karstark slowly turned back. Red marked his cheek under the beard. Leave this hall, Catelyn said. His voice was soft. You will regret that. I regret many things. Leave. For 3 heartbeats he remained. Then he bowed again, deeper than before and far more insulting for it. As my lady commands. He turned and walked out. His men followed. Only when the doors closed did the hall breathe again. Servants remembered their trays. Guards remembered they were not statues. Brienne leaned close. My lady, I am well. You are shaken. Catelyn looked at her hand. It trembled. She folded it into a fist until the tremor stopped. Edmure burst in moments later, too late as always and breathless with alarm. What happened? I have made Lord Karstark angrier, Catelyn said. Brynden entered behind him, less breathless, more grim. Hard thing to manage. How much angrier? Enough. The Blackfish looked to the door, then to her. Did he threaten you? Yes. Plainly. Plain enough. Edmure swore. I'll have him confined. You will do no such thing, Brynden said. He threatened my sister in my hall. And if you seize him, his men take it as proof we mean to dishonor him. We need Robb. Robb is not here. No, Catelyn said. But Jaime is. They both looked at her. She turned toward the door through which Karstark had gone. He will try for him. Edmure frowned. Karstark? If not tonight, soon. He did not come to beg, he came to measure. Brynden nodded slowly. Aye. He wanted to see how many guards who stood near me, whether the hall would rise with him if he spoke of sons and justice. And the hall listened. That was the part that chilled her most. Not Karstark's cruelty. Not even the mention of Bran and Rickon, though it had opened something raw in her. It was the listening. Men who had cheered Robb's victories and drunk to Ned's memory and called Jaime monster had listened to Rickard Karstark and heard sense in his grief. Hostages were useful while men believed in patience. Grief had no patience. Brynden was already moving. I'll change the guard again. Use men from outside the main hall, Catelyn said. Malisters and pipers. No Northmen near the East Tower. That will insult them. Less than finding their lord dead outside Jaime's cell. Edmure looked miserable. Gods help us, Cat. We are fighting each other while Tywin sits in Harrenhal laughing. Tywin does not laugh, Brynden said. He pays other men to laugh, then taxes them for it. No one smiled. That night, Riverrun tightened like a fist. Men who had shared cups at supper stood watch on opposite sides of doors. Northmen muttered in their camps. Riverlanders muttered back, and every mutter grew in the telling. Catelyn did not sleep. She sat in her chamber with a single candle and listened to the castle's breathing. At some hour near midnight, Brienne came to report that Jaime remained secured, and Karstark's men had withdrawn to their quarters. Withdrawn, Catelyn repeated. Yes, my lady. Not slept. No. Catelyn looked at the girl's face. She saw fatigue there, but no complaint. You should rest. So should you. Do you command me now? Brienne flushed. No, my lady. Good. I'm too tired to obey. Nani. For the first time that day, Brienne almost smiled. Catelyn leaned back. Did Jaime speak? He asked if Lord Karstark had come with an axe. And what did you say? I told him Lord Karstark had come with grief, which is sharper. Catelyn studied her. That is well said. Brienne looked uncomfortable with praise. He laughed. Oh, of course he did. But not for long. Outside, thunder rolled far off over the rivers. Catelyn thought of Winterfell beneath northern skies, of broken towers and burned boys, and of a gray lord from Carhold whose grief had begun to look for doors. Somewhere below, Jaime Lannister sat in chains, and remained the hinge upon which too many lives now turn. She had chosen not to free him. Now she had to keep him alive. Robb Stark's raven came 3 days later, and the words were not the words of a boy. Catelyn read them in her chamber with Edmure, Brynden, and Maester Vyman present, while rain gave way at last to a bright cold morning that made the rivers shine like drawn steel. The letter bore her son's seal, gray wax pressed with the direwolf. The sight of it pained her with pride before she had read a word. Mother, he began, and that first word was Robb. The rest was the king. He wrote of grief for Bran and Rickon in lines so controlled that Catelyn knew what they had cost him. He wrote that he would mourn them when the war allowed him time to be a brother, but until then he must be a king. He commanded that Jaime be held alive and secure. He forbade any private exchange. He forbade any execution unless direct harm befell Sansa through proven Lannister order, and even then he commanded that no action be taken until council could be held. He ordered Lord Karstark to remain under observation but not arrest unless he moved against the prisoner or the peace of Riverrun. He wrote that he was returning. At the end, in a hand slightly less steady, he had added, I do not blame you for thinking of my sisters. I would have thought less of you if you had not. But we cannot buy them with the ruin of all the rest. Catelyn held that line longest. We cannot buy them with the ruin of all the rest. Ned would have been proud. Ned would have been heartbroken. He sounds older, Edmure said. He is older, Brynden replied. War is a mill. It grinds boys fast. When does he arrive? Catelyn asked, though she had already read it twice. 2 days if the roads hold, Maester Vyman said. 3 if the baggage slows them. The king rides with a smaller party ahead of the main host. Who with him? The maester checked the letter. Grey Wind. Several guards. Lord Greatjon Umber. Sir Wendell Manderly. Lord Jason Mallister. Perhaps others. And he hesitated. Catelyn knew before he said it. Mothers learned to fear pauses. And Lady Jane Westerling. Edmure looked away. Bryndon's expression did not change, which meant he had expected it. Catelyn folded the letter carefully. She had known. Rumor had reached Riverrun before certainty, as rumor always did, wearing a dozen faces and all of them ugly. Robb wounded in the west. Robb nursed by a girl of the crag. Robb married. Robb had taken the Westerling maid to wife, though he had promised himself to a daughter of Lord Walder Frey. In the days since the Raven from Winterfell, Catelyn had not had room in her heart for that disaster. Now it unfolded before her like another map. "He brings her here," Edmure said softly. "She is his wife," Catelyn replied. "She is the Frey's insult. She's his wife." Bryndon gave her a look, not unkind. "Both?" "Yes, that was the cruelty of politics. A girl could be innocent and still be ruinous. A marriage could be honorable in one chamber and catastrophic in another. Robb could do the decent thing by Jean and the disastrous thing by his kingdom in the same breath. What will Walder Frey demand?" Edmure asked. "Blood, pride, and more than he is owed," Bryndon said. "He was owed a king. He was owed a marriage pact. He was never owed wisdom." Catelyn stood and went to the window. The yard below was busy in the way a castle became busy before the arrival of its lord. Straw carried, mud scraped, banners shaken out, cooks shouting for more onions, grooms currying horses that were already cleaner than the men who rode them. Riverrun prepared to receive the king in the north. Riverrun prepared to receive Catelyn's eldest son and his dangerous bride. "What of Jaime?" Edmure asked. "What of him? Should Robb see him when he arrives?" "Yes," Catelyn said. Bryndon nodded. "A king should look on the coin he spends." The phrase troubled her, but she did not argue. Robb arrived on the second evening, under a sky torn open by red sunset. Catelyn watched from the inner yard as the riders came through the gate. Grey Wind entered first, huge and pale-eyed, his fur bristling as men shrank from him. The direwolf moved like a piece of the northern forest given teeth, sniffing the air of Riverrun with suspicion. Behind him rode Robb. For one impossible instant, she saw only the child. Mud on his boots from running beside Theon. Snow in his hair from the godswood. His face serious when he held Bran after a fall from some safer height. Then the horse stepped forward and the child vanished. The man who dismounted wore mail beneath a travel-stained cloak, a crown of bronze and iron upon his brow, and grief held so tightly behind his eyes that Catelyn felt her own breath catch. He came to her at once. They did not embrace as mother and son, not before the yard. He bent and kissed her cheek. She curtsied to him. "My king," she said. "Mother." The word almost undid them both. Then others were there. Greatjon Umber, massive and loud even when silent, with a bandaged hand and a laugh that seemed carved from war drums. Jason Mallister, grave and courteous. Wendell Manderly, round and solemn, smelling faintly of horse and sea salt. And the girl. Jane Westerling dismounted with the help of a knight Catelyn did not know. She was pretty rather than beautiful, dark-haired, slender, anxious. Her eyes went first to Robb, then to Catelyn, then to the ground. She wore a gown suitable for travel, not queenly display, and over it a cloak too plain to be vanity. She looked like what she was, a young woman who had married a wounded king and discovered too late that love did not stop armies from counting debts. Robb took her hand. "Mother," he said, "this is Jane, not Lady Jane. Not my queen. Jane, a plea hidden in simplicity." Catelyn crossed the distance and took the girl's hands. They were cold. "My lady," Jane whispered. "Daughter," Catelyn said. because anything less would shame Robb before his lords and wound the girl for a crime that was not hers alone. Jane's eyes filled with sudden tears. She blinked them back. Good, Catelyn thought. The girl had some strength. Greatjon boomed something about bread and ale. Edmure hurried forward with too much cheer. The yard moved again. Horses were led away. Men shouted. Grey wind prowled near the gate, refusing to be touched. Robb leaned close to Catelyn as the others turned toward the hall. Thank you, he said. For what? For receiving her kindly. She is your wife. I know what that costs you. Do you? He flinched. Only a little. The mother in her wanted to spare him. The servant of the king could not. We will speak after you have eaten, she said. Of Jane, of Frey, of Karstark, of Jaime. His eyes hardened at the last name. He is alive? Yes. Good. Good? The word was the same one Brynden had used, but in Robb's mouth it carried something new. Not relief. Not mercy. Use. Catelyn looked at her son beneath his rough crown and understood that the mill had indeed ground fast. At supper, Riverrun tried to be glad. The hall filled with steam from trenchers and wet wool drying near the hearth. Banners hung overhead. Tully Trout, Stark Direwolf, Mallister Eagle, Manderley Merman, Umber Giant, others besides. Cups were raised to the king's return, to victories in the west, to the memory of Winterfell's dead. Men drank to Bran and Rickon. Catelyn kept her face still while their names echoed against the rafters. Robb sat in the high seat with Jane beside him. She ate little. He ate less. Grey wind lay beneath the table, eyes open, growling whenever a Frey man came too near. There were few Freys present, and those few looked as if they would rather be anywhere else. Word of Robb's marriage had already reached the twins, surely. Perhaps Walder Frey had laughed. Perhaps he had spat. Perhaps he had simply begun counting. Rickard Karstark did not attend. That absence lay across the feast more heavily than his presence would have. When the meal ended, Robb rose. Council! The word cut through the hall. Men who had hoped for drinking groaned softly and obeyed. Jane stood as if to follow, then stopped when Robb touched her hand. Rest, he murmured. She nodded, but her eyes moved to Catelyn. Catelyn gave her the smallest, reassuring incline of the head she could manage. It was enough. The girl left with 2 women and a guard. The council gathered in Hoster's Solar. Robb, Catelyn, Edmure, Brynden, Greatjon, Jason Mallister, Wendell Manderley, Mage Mormont newly arrived with mud, still on her boots, and several captains whose names Catelyn knew by use, if not affection. The room felt too small for so much worry. Robb removed his crown and placed it on the table. No one spoke. At last he said, "Tell me of the Kingslayer." Catelyn did. She spoke of the Raven from Winterfell, of her temptation, of her decision, of the new cell, of Karstark's demand and insult. She did not soften her own near folly, though Edmure looked pained and Greatjon muttered when she described it. Robb listened without interruption. When she finished, he looked at Brynden. "You trust the cell. I trust no cell. I trust that one more than the last. Guards? Change twice daily. No Northmen, no Carhold men. Brienne keeps the lower stair." Greatjon scratched his beard. "That maid's worth 3 of most men." "She is," Catelyn said. Robb nodded. "Lord Karstark." "Angry," Edmure said. Greatjon snorted. "We're all angry. Some of us don't make a feast of it." "Nay. His sons died taking Jaime," Jason Mallister said. "His grief has many sympathizers." "Grief does not command my hostage," Robb said. The room stilled. He had not raised his voice, but something in it sharpened. Meg Mormont leaned forward. "What will you do with him? With Karstark or Jaime?" "Both." Robb looked at the map. "Jaime lives. Karstark is watched. If he moves against the prisoner, he answers for treason." And if he demands trial by your own northern custom? Greatjon asked. Then he may have it after the war, if he is alive and loyal enough to stand one. A rough laugh went around, but uneasily. Catelyn studied Robb's face. He looked exhausted. The crown had left a mark in his hair. There was still youth in the curve of his cheek, but less than before. Had she missed its leaving? Had it happened slowly, or in one night by a stranger girl's bed while he bled and learned that comfort could cost a kingdom? We must speak of the Freys, she said. Robb did not look away. Yes, Greatjon groaned. Must we? Yes, Robb said. The Greatjon subsided, which showed how much the room had changed. Once he might have roared over the boy. Now he looked at the king and swallowed what came first. I broke faith, Robb said. No one contradicted him. I married Jane Westerling. She is my wife before gods and men. I will not set her aside. Nor should you, Catelyn thought. And yet, Walder Frey will require answer, Jason Lannister said. He will require crawling, Greatjon growled. Let him choke on it. Without the twins, our road north grows harder, Brynden said. Without Frey swords, our numbers thin. Without repairing the insult, the old weasel may sell himself to Tywin openly. No, he may already have done, Meg said. Then we must make him sell twice, Catelyn said. All eyes turned to her. She felt Robb's gaze most of all. Walder Frey loves grievance because grievance gives him price, she continued. He will want public apology, marriages, honors, hostages perhaps. He must feel that he has made a king bend. Let him feel it. Pride can be cheaper than blood. Greatjon grumbled. You'd have the king in the north kneel to a bridge lord. I would have the king in the north cross the bridge. Robb looked at the map. What marriage? No one answered quickly enough. Then Edmure said, Mine? Catelyn turned to him. His face was pale but determined. If a Frey girl was to be queen and cannot be, perhaps one can be Lady of Riverrun. Edmure, she said softly. I am not a boy, Cat. No, you are not. He tried a smile. It did not hold. And father always wanted me wed. Brynden looked at his nephew with something like approval hidden under gruffness. You understand what you offer? A Frey bride? Gods help me, yes. It may not be enough, Jason said. Robb placed both hands on the table. Then we add apology, honors, fosterage if we must. Coin when we have it. Greatjon barked. Do we have coin? No? Wendell Manderly said sadly. But we have promises of coin. Lords have built worse things from promises. Robb almost smiled. Then he looked to Catelyn. And Jaime? Catelyn knew the thought before he spoke it. No, I did not say. You thought of offering him as part of the settlement. Not to Frey. To Tywin. Sansa for Jaime, under truce, before we march north. No. The room stirred. Her heart did too. Traitorous and swift. Sansa. Sansa, walking free. Sansa out of Cersei's reach. Sansa perhaps sent to Riverrun, to her mother's arms, thin and frightened but alive. Brynden said what she could not. Tywin will take his son and keep the girl if he can. We would demand neutral ground, Robb said. Neutral ground is only ground where both sides bring knives. Then what? Keep him forever, until he buys more than a promise. Robb's mouth tightened. Every day we keep him, Karstark festers, Tywin plots, and Sansa remains in a cage. Every day you keep him, Catelyn said. Tywin must wonder what happens if he strikes too boldly. Robb looked at her, and the room fell away for a moment. Only mother and son remained, both thinking of the girl in King's Landing. You told me not to buy them with the ruin of all the rest, Catelyn said. I know what I wrote. Then heed yourself. He closed his eyes. When he opened them, they were wet, but steady. Jaime stays, he said. And so the lion remained chained. Robb went to see Jaime the next morning. Catelyn walked with him, though she would have spared herself if sparing were still a luxury granted to mothers. Brynden came too, and Brienne met them at the lower stair, helm under one arm, eyes shadowed from too little sleep. She bowed to Robb, awkwardly but with respect. "Your Grace." Robb looked at her for a moment. "You are Brienne." "I am. My mother says you helped keep our hostage. I did my duty. That is rarer than it should be." Color rose in her face. "Thank you, Your Grace." Grey wind had followed them as far as the first lower door before refusing to go farther. The direwolf stood there now, hackles raised, staring into the dark as if he smelled not Jaime, but all the lies beneath Riverrun. Robb crouched and put a hand in his fur. "Stay," he said. Grey wind growled. "Stay?" The wolf obeyed, but not happily. The descent continued without him. Catelyn noticed Robb's shoulders as they went down the stair. They had broadened since he left Winterfell, or perhaps armor and command made them seem so. His hand rested near his sword, not because he feared attack, but because kings learned to know where steel was. He had Ned's coloring, Tully blue eyes, but in that moment something of neither house showed. Something made by war alone. At the outer door, the guards saluted. Brynden gave the countersign. Brienne unlocked the first door, then the second. Iron complained. Jaime was standing when they entered. He had been given clean water and a razor under guard the day before, so his beard was trimmed now, and his face looked closer to the courtly knight songs remembered. His hair fell loose about his shoulders. The chains remained. Somehow the clean jaw made them look harsher. "Your Grace," Jaime said, and swept into as much of a bow as the irons allowed. "Or is it your Northern Grace? I should hate to offend a new court on my first visit." Robb looked at him without expression. "Kingslayer. Still clinging to that? I have other names. I know them. Do you? I wonder." Catelyn felt Brienne tense beside her. Jaime's eyes flicked to the movement and brightened. He enjoyed rooms like this. He enjoyed finding the seam and picking until cloth tore. Robb did not oblige him. "You are alive because I command it," Robb said. "Here I thought it was because your mother has a tender heart. My mother has a stronger heart than most men in my host." Jaime glanced at her, and for once made no jest. Robb stepped closer. "You will be treated according to your value. Not your honor. Not your birth. Your value. If you attempt escape, you will be restrained more harshly. If you attack a guard, you will be subdued. If men come to kill you, my guards will protect you. Do you understand? Me, MBI. I confess, that last part warmed me. Do you understand? Yes. Good. Good? Jaime leaned one shoulder against the wall. "And what value do you place on me today? A sister? A kingdom? A bridge? A father's obedience?" Robb's face remained still, but Catelyn knew he had struck near. Jaime's gift was not only arrogance, it was aim. "You are not worth a kingdom," Robb said. "No man is." Spoken like a king with no heirs. Catelyn's breath sharpened. Robb stepped closer again. Jaime's chains scraped as he straightened. For a moment, they looked strangely alike and utterly opposed. Young wolf and golden lion, both born to names older than themselves, both carrying fathers like weights around their necks. "My brothers are dead," Robb said quietly. "My sisters are captives or lost. My home is burned. My father was murdered by your king. I have won battles and lost more than you will ever understand. Do not mistake youth for softness." Jaime looked at him for a long moment. Then he said, "No, I will not." There was something like respect in it, though with Jaime respect always wore armor. Robb turned to leave. "Stark," Jaime said. The guards stiffened at the lack of title. Robb paused. "If you trade me, my father will cheat you. I know. If you kill me, my sister will kill your sister. I know. If you keep me, He will make everyone near you ask whether one Lannister is worth their sons." Robb looked back. "I know." Jaime smiled faintly. "Then perhaps you are not as stupid as your father." The cell changed in an instant. Bryndon's hand went to his sword. Brienne stepped forward. Catelyn felt heat rise in her own blood, white and blinding. But Robb only turned fully, and the look he gave Jaime was colder than anger. "My father died because he offered mercy to your sister." Jaime said nothing. "I will not make that mistake with you." Then, Robb walked out. The doors closed behind them one by one. In the passage beyond, Brienne looked stricken, as if she had failed to prevent an insult from touching the king. Bryndon seemed almost pleased. Robb waited until they reached the upper stair, where the air was less foul. Then he stopped. For a moment, he braced one hand against the stone. Catelyn moved toward him. "Robb? I am well." "No, you are not." He laughed once, without humor. "No, I am not." Bryndon gestured to Brienne and the guards to give them space. They did, though not far. Robb lowered his voice. "I wanted to kill him. I know. I wanted to draw and take his head and send it to Casterly Rock. I know. Would they cheer me for it? Some would. Karstark would. Yes. Would you?" The question hurt more than accusation. Catelyn took his face in her hands as she had when he was small, though he was taller now and armed and crowned by men who expected him to save them. For a heartbeat he let her. His beard was rough beneath her palms. "I would weep for what it cost you," she said. His eyes closed. "I hate him," Robb whispered. "So do I." He crippled Bran. "Yes. He would have killed you with words if he knew how. He tried. He sits there alive while Bran and Rickon..." His voice broke. "Not fully. Kings did not break fully where stone might tell. But enough." Catelyn drew him close, and this time he allowed the embrace. Armor made it awkward. Grief made it necessary. He was taller than she remembered, but in her arms he was still the child who had once hidden his face after failing to master a horse. Ned said was too spirited for him. She held him until he stepped back. When he did, the king returned piece by piece. "I will speak with Karstark," he said. "Not alone. No, not angrily." That almost drew a smile. "Can one speak to Karstark otherwise?" "Carefully. I will try." They climbed back to the world of banners and daylight. Grey Wind was waiting by the door, restless and angry. He pressed against Robb so hard the king nearly stumbled. Robb put a hand on his head. "He hates that place," Robb said. "He smells danger. He smells Lannister." Perhaps that is the same thing. Robb looked down at the wolf. If only all enemies were so easy to scent. The rest of the day belonged to councils. Robb heard reports from captains, scolded quartermasters, praised scouts, questioned Maester Vyman about stores and sickness, and sent for every message received since his last visit to Riverrun. Catelyn watched him move from matter to matter with a discipline that frightened her more than weariness would have. He had learned to cut himself into pieces. Grief here, strategy there. Hunger nowhere, fear buried deep. Jane came to him near afternoon with a cup of watered wine and a plate he had not asked for. She stood uncertainly at the edge of the solar until Catelyn noticed her. "My lady," Catelyn said. "Come in." Robb looked up and softened despite himself. That softness was dangerous. Not because it was wrong, but because everyone could see it. Greyjohn saw and grinned. Bryndon saw and frowned. Edmure saw and looked hopeful, because Edmure always hoped love would mend what pride had broken. Jane set the food beside Robb. "You have not eaten." "I ate." "A crust is not eaten." "I am in council." "Kings may starve in council?" Greyjohn laughed. "This one tries." Robb colored slightly. "Jane, not." She lowered her eyes, realizing she had stepped too far before his lords. Catelyn felt pity then. The girl had learned a wife's concern before learning a queen's caution. Robb took the cup. "Thank you." It saved her. When Jane left, Brynden waited precisely 3 breaths before saying, "The Freys will see that." Robb's softness vanished. "See what? That you love her. I married her. Not always the same thing." "Enough." Catelyn said, "Your uncle is not cruel to say it. Walder Frey will look for every tender place." "Then let him look," Robb said. "He will find plenty. I am full of them." No one answered. Later, when the council thinned, Catelyn found Jane in the Godswood Riverrun kept more for northern guests than Old Faith. It was a small place compared to Winterfell's, the heart tree young and pale, its carved face shallow and almost apologetic. Jane stood before it with her hands clasped. "I do not know how to pray here," she said when Catelyn approached. "Nor did I once. Do the old gods listen to strangers? I think they listen as trees listen." Jane considered that, patiently, silently. The girl gave a small, sad smile. Catelyn stood beside her. For a while they watched leaves move in the wind. "I have hurt him," Jane said at last. "Yes." The honesty made her flinch. Catelyn did not soften it. "And he hurt himself. And he hurt his cause. And perhaps he saved your honor at the cost of his own promise. All of those things are true." "Na, and tun, e, dion, das kann me, oh. I did not mean. I know. My mother said." Jane stopped. Catelyn looked at her. "What did your mother say? That kings take what they want and call it fate? Your mother's Sibel Spicer." Jane's cheeks reddened. Yes. Catelyn knew the name. Westerling by marriage, Spicer by birth, ambitious through both, if rumor held. A woman who had risen by making herself useful and intended her children to rise higher. Catelyn wondered suddenly how much of Robb's marriage had been youth, pain, comfort, and how much had been arranged by older hands while he bled in a western bed. Did she encourage the match? Catelyn asked. She said, "I must be kind to him. He was wounded. He was so sad when news came of his brothers. I thought," her voice trembled, "I thought kindness could not be wicked." Catelyn closed her eyes briefly. Kindness could be wicked if someone placed it like bait. Kindness could be innocent and still serve a trap. The world was merciless in its combinations. "Listen to me," Catelyn said. "Whatever brought you to this, you are his wife now. That means you must learn quickly. Speak carefully in council. Never shame him before his lords, even from love. Never trust a Frey smile. Never trust a Lannister promise. Never trust a Lannister promise. Never assume your mother's counsel serves your husband before it serves your house. And if you carry a child, tell no one before you tell me, or..." Jane's face went white. "I do not know if... I know. But if you do, you become more than a wife. You become the mother of a possible heir, and that will make you precious to some and dangerous to others." "No, The girl touched her stomach without seeming to mean to. Catelyn's heart twisted. She had been younger than Jane when she first carried Robb, left in Winterfell with a husband gone to war and a household that watched her as a southern stranger. She remembered fear. She remembered loneliness. She remembered loving the child before knowing him because there had been nothing else to hold. "I will help you," Catelyn said. Jane looked at her, startled. "I do not know if I can forgive the cost," Catelyn said. "But I will not make you pay it alone." The girl began to cry then, quietly. Ashamed of it, Catelyn let her. Some tears needed witnesses. Some did not. Above them, Riverrun's young heart tree moved its leaves in silence. Rickard Karstark came when summoned, but he did not come alone. Robb received him in the yard rather than the hall, a choice Catelyn knew was deliberate. Open air left less room for whispers to gather and fewer shadows for hands to hide in. The morning was gray, the mud churned by hooves and boots. The walls of Riverrun slick from the night's damp. Men noticed a confrontation as hounds noticed meat. They came slowly, pretending business, until the yard held Northmen, Riverlanders, guards, grooms, squires, cooks at the kitchen door. and lords who knew better than to seem too interested. Grey Wind stood at Robb's side. Karstark crossed the yard with 4 men behind him. He stopped before the king and bowed. It was proper. Barely. Your Grace, my lord. Catelyn stood to Robb's right, Brynden to his left, Greyjohn behind and looming like a siege tower with a beard. Edmure hovered near the steps, anxious and offended by his own anxiety. Brienne stood farther back, watching Karstark's men as much as Karstark. Robb did not sit. He wore his crown. In daylight it looked rougher than a southern crown, bronze and iron points dark against auburn hair. It suited him better for that. "I am told you asked to see my prisoner," Robb said. "I asked for justice. You asked for Jaime. They are the same." "No." The word carried across the yard. Karstark's mouth tightened. "My sons died taking him. So did other men. My sons. I know their names," Robb said. Karstark stilled. Torrhen Karstark. Eddard Karstark. They rode with courage at the Whispering Wood. Torrhen broke a Lannister line near the stream. Eddard took a wound meant for Darren Hornwood and fought on. I wrote their names myself for the dead roll. Do not think I have forgotten them because I refuse to throw away what they captured. No, I didn't. Until. For the first time, Karstark seemed unsure. Catelyn felt a painful pride. Robb had chosen the right blade. Then Karstark's grief round itself. They captured a murderer. They captured Tywin Lannister's heir. An oathbreaker. Yes, a child killer. Robb's face moved at that. Yes. Then why does he live? Because dead he is only meat. Alive he is a wall between my sisters and Cersei's vengeance. Alive he is a weight on Tywin's hand. Alive he makes our enemies cautious. Caution. Karstark's voice rose. Was he cautious when he slew my sons? Was Theon Greyjoy cautious when he took Winterfell? Were the Lannisters cautious when they struck down your father? Grey Wind growled. Robb laid a hand on the wolf's head. This is not about caution. It is about command. Jaime is my prisoner. His fate is mine to decide. And where is justice for Torrhen and Eddard? With every battle we win, battles do not bury sons. No, Robb said, and his voice dropped. They bury more of them. The yard quieted. Karstark looked at the king, and Catelyn could see that some part of him wanted to yield. Men did not always know when they stood at the edge of treason. Sometimes they came to it step by step, each step justified by pain, until turning back felt like betraying the dead. Robb offered him that turning. My lord, I grieve with you. I will honor your sons. I will see their bones carried north when this war allows it. But if you move against my prisoner, you move against me. If any of your men move against my prisoner, they move against me. And if you speak of my mother's grief again as you did before, you will answer to me, not to her. Then, Karstark's eyes flicked to Catelyn. The mark of her slap was gone from his cheek, but not from memory. I spoke in sorrow, he said. You spoke cruelly. I know the difference. The Grey John made a pleased sound low in his throat. Robb took one step closer. You are my bannerman. I need you. The North needs you. Do not make me choose between your grief and my crown. There. The door open. The path back. Karstark bowed his head. For one breath, Catelyn hoped. Then he said, I have already chosen between your crown and my sons. Robb went still. Karstark raised his head. I will obey your command while I remain under your roof. I will not draw steel in Riverrun. But do not ask me to call this justice. Do not ask me to stand beside the man who keeps my sons killer-fed. And do not ask Carhold to bleed forever for a king who values a lion above northern blood. Greyjohn took a step forward. Careful, Rickard. Karstark looked at him. You lost fingers, Umber. I lost sons. Do not compare the price. The yard held its breath. Robb's voice was cold. You may withdraw to your quarters. Your men will remain outside the inner keep unless assigned duty by Sir Brynden. You will not approach the East Tower. You will not send men below. You will attend council when summoned and speak when recognized. You may hate me in your heart, Lord Karstark, but you will obey me in my castle. Karstark bowed again. This time there was nothing proper in it. Ace your grace commands. He turned and left. His men followed. The crowd parted for them. Only after they were gone did the yard begin to move again. Men pretended not to have watched. Grooms remembered horses. Cooks remembered pots. Lords remembered other appointments. Catelyn remained where she was, her hand clenched inside her sleeve. Robb exhaled slowly. Grey John came to his side. You handled that well. Did I? Well enough that I didn't have to hit him. That is the measure of kingship now? Often, Brynden said. He will not forgive you. I did not ask him to. You asked him to obey? That may be harder. Robb looked toward the gate through which Karstark had gone. Set watchers on his quarters. Quietly. I want to know who visits him, who leaves, who drinks too much and says too much. Nay, yeah. Already done, Brynden said. Robb almost smiled. Of course. Catelyn touched his arm. You gave him a path back. He did not take it. Not yet. Robb's expression softened just enough for sorrow to show. You still hope too much. I am a mother. It is my great failing. No, he said. It is not. The words were kind. They hurt. That evening, the first Frey raven arrived. It came with a seal Catelyn remembered from too many crossings, the twin towers of the bridge stamped in gray wax. The parchment smelled faintly of mildew, as though the twins themselves had breathed on it. Edmure received it in the hall, but Robb broke the seal. The letter was from Lord Walder Frey, or rather from a maester writing in Lord Walder's name, though the old man's spite crawled through every line. It congratulated Robb on his marriage with such elaborate courtesy that every blessing became an accusation. It spoke of broken vows, wounded honor, daughters slighted, grandsons insulted, and the unreliability of kings who grew forgetful after victories. It did not renounce alliance. That was the important part. It did not declare for the Iron Throne. It did not close the crossing. It invited explanation. Explanation, Grey John said after Robb read it aloud. Is that what we call crawling now? Edmure took the parchment and read with a worsening face. He names me. Catelyn already knew what was coming. Robb did too. He suggests that if House Tully means to prove its affection for House Frey, my uncle might consider one of his daughters. Suggests, Brynden said. How gentle of him. Edmure swallowed. Which daughter? Robb read again. Roslyn Tartati. The room reacted subtly. Some with recognition, some with surprise. Roslyn Frey had been seen at the crossing, a pretty girl if reports were true, and not one of the old man's worst options. That made Catelyn more suspicious, not less. Why Roslyn? She asked. Robb looked at her. Lord Walder does not give sweetness without searching it for hooks, she said. Edmure attempted a weak smile. Perhaps he has too many daughters and forgot which ones he likes. Brynden grunted. More likely he remembers exactly. Robb folded the letter. We will answer with courtesy. I will apologize. Katumde. Great John made a strangled noise. I will apologize, Robb repeated louder. Because I broke my word. Edmure, you need not agree tonight. Edmure looked at the fire. I agreed when I spoke. You spoke in council. This is your life. And what is my life weighed against the war? Catelyn hated that question because she knew the answer lords were supposed to give. Robb said, Enough that I ask again. Edmure looked at his nephew. There was affection there, and envy perhaps, and resentment, and pride. I will marry Roslyn Frey if it repairs what can be repaired. It may not. Then I will marry her and be miserable for nothing. Men have done worse. Greyjohn laughed then, and others joined because relief needed somewhere to go. Edmure smiled, but Catelyn saw fear beneath it. He was no coward, her brother. He simply felt the shape of the trap and walked toward it because family and duty and honor could be chains as heavy as Jaime's. That night, she dreamed of a bridge made of bones. She stood on one side with Robb, Edmure, Jane, and the direwolf. On the other side stood Walder Frey, small and ancient and smiling, with too many children behind him to count. Beneath the bridge ran red water. Jaime Lannister hung from the center in golden chains, laughing as the bones cracked one by one. When Catelyn looked down, she saw Bran and Rickon beneath the water, not burned but pale and drifting, eyes open. She woke with a hand over her mouth to keep from crying out. For a moment she did not know where she was. Then Riverrun gathered around her. The bed of her childhood, the rain smell in the stones, the faint sound of guards changing watch. A knock came at the door. Catelyn rose, wrapped a robe around herself, and opened it. Brienne stood outside with a torch in hand. "My lady," she said, "there is trouble below." The trouble below was not yet blood, which meant there was still time for it to become worse. Catelyn dressed quickly and followed Brienne through the corridors, her heart beating hard enough to make the torchlight seem unsteady. The castle was awake in patches. A guard at a stair, a servant peering from behind a door, a boy running with no clear errand except fear. Word traveled through stone in ways no lord could command. Trouble below. The lion. Karstark. The words were not spoken to her, but she saw them in faces as she passed. At the first lower door, Brynden was already there, half-armored, sword belted over a plain tunic. He had aged 10 years only in the sense that all of them had. Otherwise, he looked as if he had been born waiting for midnight treachery. "What happened?" Catelyn asked. Two men tried the servant's stair with wine and a forged kitchen order. Karstark men, not wearing his badge. That is not an answer. No. Brienne said, "They claimed the prisoner was to be moved before dawn." "By whose command?" "Yours, my lady." Catelyn felt cold open inside her. Brynden held up a strip of parchment. The writing was poor, the seal worse. A trout pressed too shallowly, waxed the wrong shade. To a frightened scullion or half-drunk gate guard it might have sufficed. To the guards Brynden had chosen, it had not. "Where are they?" Catelyn asked. "Held in the lower storeroom. Alive, mostly unmarked." "Mostly." One resisted. Brienne looked away. Catelyn did not ask more. Jaime? In his cell, smiling. Of course he was. Robb arrived before they opened the second door, buckling his sword as he came. Hair mussed from sleep, crown absent. That made him look younger until one saw his eyes. Grey Wind was with him, though the wolf was held at the upper threshold by two men who looked deeply unhappy about the duty. "Who?" Robb asked. "We do not know yet," Brynden said. "Karstark?" "We do not know yet." Robb's jaw tightened. "Then let us learn." They went first to the prisoners, not Jaime. Catelyn approved. A king who let his enemy watch him react gave away coin for free. The storeroom smelled of onions, damp sacks, and fear. Two men knelt with hands bound behind them. One had blood on his mouth and tunic. Both were young, which made Catelyn angry in a tired way. War used young men as kindling, and older men called it loyalty. The unbloodied one stared at the floor. The other glared with more courage than sense. Robb stood before them. Names. Silence. Greyjohn, who had followed after all, cracked his knuckles. He asked sweetly. The bloodied man spat red onto the stones. Brienne moved, but Robb lifted a hand. "Names," Robb repeated. The unbloodied one broke first. "Pate, your grace." "Pate what?" "Pate of Fairmarket." "Whose man?" No answer. Robb looked to the other. "And you?" The man smiled with red teeth. "No one's." Brynden sighed. "I hate brave fools. They make everything take longer." Catelyn studied them. Their boots were northern make, but boots could be stolen. Their cloaks were plain, hands calloused by weapons, not plows. The Forged Order had named her. That was not random. Someone wished the guards to believe she had changed her mind after all. Someone wished the story to spread if it failed. Robb seemed to think the same. "You were sent to free Jaime?" he asked. The bloodied man laughed. "To kill him?" Robb asked. That laugh stopped too quickly. Catelyn felt the room shift. Robb crouched before Pate. "Look at me." The young man did, unwillingly. "If you lie, the Greyjohn will ask next. If you tell me truth, I may remember that you were less stupid than your friend." Pate swallowed. "Were you sent to kill the Kingslayer?" His mouth worked. "Yes." "By whom?" The other prisoner lunged sideways, trying to knock him down. Bound as he was, he managed only to fall hard against Pat's shoulder. Greyjohn hauled him back by the collar like a sack. Pat began to tremble. Robb waited. "By no lord," Pate said. "That is not truth. By men who said, they said the king had grown weak. They said the old wolf would have taken the head. They said Lord Karstark had the right of it. Names." Pat closed his eyes. Robb stood. "Names. Garin, Harl, Donnell. I don't know more. I don't. One serves in Lord Karstark's outer guard, but he didn't wear the sunburst when he came. I swear it." The room went silent. Robb looked at Brynden. "Find them." Brynden was gone before the words finished. The bloody prisoner laughed again, wild now. "Find all you like. The lion should die. Every true Northman knows it. You keep him for girls already dead or spoiled in Lannister beds." Greyjohn hit him. It was not a dramatic blow, not the sort sung of. It was short, efficient, and terrible. The man crumpled sideways and did not rise. Pat made a small sound. Robb looked at Greyjohn. The huge lord shrugged. He was done talking sense. Catelyn should have objected. She found she could not. Robb's face was pale. "Take them under guard. Separate rooms. No one speaks to them without my command." The men were dragged away. Only then did Robb turn toward the lower cell. Jaime was sitting when they entered, elbows on knees, chains slack between his wrists. He looked up with the expression of a man enjoying poor theater. "Assassins before breakfast," he said. "You honor me." Robb ignored the bait. "Did you know? That men wish me dead? I have suspected. Did you know they were coming? My dreams are seldom so kind." Brienne stepped inside and examined the cell. Nothing seemed disturbed. The locks were intact. The guards at the door looked offended by the possibility that anything could have passed them. Jaime's gaze moved from Robb to Catelyn. "Your work?" "No. A pity. It had a certain desperate elegance. Free me with one hand, kill me with the other, blame grief for both." Robb said, "If you had died tonight, your father would have made a weapon of it. My father makes weapons of weather. He would have blamed us. Obviously. He might have harmed Sansa." Jaime leaned back, and the smile thinned. "Cersei needs no might." Catelyn stepped forward. "What does that mean?" "It means my sister believes cruelty is strength and patience is something old men invented to steal victories from the beautiful. Sansa is in her hands. For now." "For now?" Jaime gave her a look almost pitying. "King's Landing has many hands. My sister's, my father's, Joffrey's, Tyrion's, when he is sober enough. Littlefinger's, if he still has fingers in anything. Varys, though no one sees them. Your daughter is a piece many would like to own." Catelyn hated him for saying own. She hated him more for being right. "Would your brother protect her?" she asked. "Tyrion?" Jaime seemed amused. "He has a habit of protecting things no one thanks him for." "Is that yes?" "It is Tyrion." Robb listened sharply. "If we proposed exchange through him?" Jaime's eyes brightened. "There it is. I asked a question, and I heard a hope." Jaime tilted his head. Send to my little brother if you like. He may answer honestly, which would endanger him. He may answer cleverly, which would endanger you. He may be overruled by my father, which would endanger everyone. But yes, if any Lannister in King's Landing has enough spite to do a decent thing, it is Tyrion. Nan Disha. Catelyn remembered the high road to the Eyrie, the dwarf's anger, his demand for trial, the way he had stood small and fearless among enemies. She had wronged him once, or been led to wrong him. In war, the distinction mattered less to the wronged. Robb looked to her. Could Tyrion be used? Everyone can be used, Jaime said. Robb did not look away from Catelyn. Perhaps, she said. But carefully, Jaime laughed. Put that on your banners. Robb finally looked back at him. You find this amusing. I find being murdered by your own allies less dull than damp walls. They were not my allies. No, they follow you. Fight for you. Drink your victories. Curse your enemies. What are allies, if not men waiting to disagree over the price? Robb's mouth tightened. Jaime leaned forward. This is what my father knows and you are learning. Men do not follow a crown. They follow hunger, fear, pride, memory, gold, gods, songs, and the shape of their own wounds. You think Karstark is one man. He is not. He is every father who buried a son and needs the grave to answer back. Nay, Bandaya. Catelyn wished she could dismiss the words as mockery. She could not. Robb said, and what are you? A son whose father wants him back. No. That is what you are worth. I asked what you are. Jaime smiled slowly. Dangerous. Yes, Robb said. But not only to us. He turned and left the cell. By dawn, Brynden had taken 4 men into custody. 2 were Karstark retainers. 1 was a Riverlander whose brother had died in the Whispering Wood. 1 was a singer who had been in Riverrun 3 weeks, and suddenly had no song for how he came by Northern Coin. Jaren, the name Pate had given, was found with his throat cut in a stable loft. Whether by his own hand or another's, no one could say. Harl vanished. Donnell was taken drunk, weeping and swearing he had only carried messages. The castle woke to rumors of conspiracy. Robb ordered the gates sealed. No one left Riverrun that day without his command. No raven flew without Maester Vyman showing the message first to Brynden. Karstark's quarters were surrounded politely by guards who claimed to be protecting him from false accusation. Rickard received the insult with a face like winter stone. At council, the lords argued till voices cracked. Arrest him, Greyjohn said. Drag him in and have done. On what proof? Jason Mallister asked. Men who admire his anger are not his hand. His guard was named, Edmure said. Named by a frightened prisoner, Wendell Manderly said. Truth. Perhaps. Or bait. Meg Mormont thumped a fist on the table. If we do nothing, every man in camp learns he may test the king and sleep sound after. If we seize Karstark without proof, Catelyn said, every Carhold man decides the king protects lions and chains Northmen. Robb sat silent through it. That worried her. He had learned to listen, but this silence was not listening. It was weighing. At last he said, Bring Lord Karstark. When Rickard entered, he looked at the guards, the lords, the map, and finally the king. You accuse me, he said. I question you, Robb replied. Then, question. Did you send men to kill Jaime? No. Did you know men meant to try? No. Did you speak with Jaren? He was my man. Recently? I speak to my men. Did you tell him the Kingslayer should die? I have told every man who will listen that the Kingslayer should die. Did you command it? No. Bye. The word came hard and clear. Robb watched him. Catelyn watched Robb. There was no proof. Not enough for a king who wanted justice to remain justice. Not enough for the son of Ned Stark. Robb said, "Then you will remain under guard until this matter is finished." Karstark's eyes blazed. "You call that no accusation. I call it necessity. I call it dishonor. You may call it what you like from your chambers." For a moment, Catelyn thought Karstark would refuse. Then he bowed, stiff and shaking with rage. When he had gone, Robb turned to the council. "The prisoners who confessed will be tried. The one who struck at a guard will hang. Pate will be spared death if his testimony holds, and if he names all he knows. The singer will be questioned. Karstark remains watched. Jaime remains alive." "Nay, Kakaya." Greatjon looked ready to argue, but Robb continued. "And tonight I ride Walder Frey accepting his terms in principle." That startled even Brynden. "Tonight?" Catelyn asked. "Yes. We cannot march north with Riverrun sealed against itself. We need the crossing. We need settlement. We need to move before Tywin learns how close we are to tearing our own throat open." Catelyn felt the truth of that like a hand around her heart. The war had not paused for their grief. It had entered the room and taken a chair. The letter to Walder Frey took longer to write than any battle plan Robb had made. Battles had a terrible clarity once begun. Men stood there and there. Horses charged or did not. Arrows fell where they were loosed. A flank broke, a reserve moved. A river trapped the foolish. Afterward, songs lied and maesters argued, but in the moment, battle was a beast of blood and motion. A letter to Walder Frey was a nest of snakes disguised as courtesy. Robb wrote in his own hand. Catelyn sat across from him. Brynden stood by the fire. Edmure drank too much watered wine and not enough courage. Maester Vyman hovered with sand and fresh quills. Jane had been sent to her chambers, though Catelyn suspected she was not sleeping. The first draft was too proud. Brynden read it and said, "If you mean to insult him, save parchment and send a dead rat." Robb took it back without protest and began again. The second was too humble. Catelyn read it and shook her head. "You are apologizing for being king. I am apologizing for breaking faith. Do that, not more." The third named Jane too, tenderly. Edmure winced. "Perhaps less about her virtues?" Robb glared. "He is right," Catelyn said. "He will know I love her. He must not know how much. That seems a coward's counsel. It is a queen's survival." Robb threw down the quill. Ink spotted his fingers. "She is not some weakness to hide. No, she is your wife. That makes her a place your enemies will strike first." The anger left him as quickly as it had come, and weariness filled the space. "I hate this. I know." "No," he said. "You hate losing. I hate pretending the honorable choice can be made dishonorable by other men's pride." Catelyn looked at him for a long moment. "Then you hate rule." Brynden grunted approval. Robb leaned back. The candlelight deepened the shadows under his eyes. "Father would have hated it too. Your father did hate it. He still did it. Yes. That steadied him. Ned often did, even dead. Perhaps especially dead. The living father could advise, disappoint, command, err. The dead father became a standard no son could reach, and no enemy could burn. Robb took up the quill again. The final letter apologized plainly for the broken pact, praised House Frey's loyalty, acknowledged the insult done, offered Edmure's hand to Roslyn, invited Lord Walder to name reasonable honors and considerations, and proposed a meeting at the Twins under guest right to repair the alliance before the North, march to reclaim the North. It did not mention Jaime. It did not mention Karstark. It did not mention fear. When it was sealed, Robb sat staring at the wax. "Guessed right," Edmure said, as if the words themselves were a charm. Brynden's face remained dark. "Guessed right binds honorable men." It binds all men, Edmure said. No, it curses all men who break it. That is not the same. Catelyn felt the dream bridge beneath her feet again. Bones cracking. Red water. Walder Frey is many things, Edmure said. But he is not mad. He would not break guest right beneath his own roof. Mad? Brynden said. No. Small, old, greedy, proud. A man does not need madness to do evil. Often he needs only permission. Tywin would not permit it while Jaime is here, Catelyn said. The room quieted. That was the thought around which all others circled. Tywin Lannister could forgive many crimes if they served him. He could order worse before breakfast and dine well after. But Jaime was not some cousin, not some expendable bannerman. Jaime was his heir in every way that mattered to Tywin's pride, even if the White Cloak had stolen the legal form of it. Jaime was the golden proof that House Lannister produced lions, not merely men. If Walder Frey slaughtered Robb under guest right, while Jaime remained in Riverrun, Tywin might win the war and lose the son he valued most. Would he risk it? Robb asked. No one answered. Catelyn thought of Tywin in King's Landing or Harrenhal, reading reports with cold green-gold eyes. Would he risk Jaime to destroy Robb? Not willingly, but Tywin did not need to risk what he could deny. He could whisper. Frey could act. Bolton could benefit. If Jaime died afterward, Tywin could say grief had made wolves savage, and then burn the Riverlands to ash in righteous fury. Men like Tywin made even their own losses into weapons. He will try to have Jaime secured first, Brynden said. Robb nodded. Then Jaime does not leave Riverrun, nor should word of his exact cell. Too late for some of that, Edmure muttered. Catelyn said, we can let it be known he remains well guarded and alive. No more. Robb looked to Vyman. Send the Frey letter at first light. Yes, your grace. Send another to Lord Bolton. The name changed the room in a subtler way than Freys had. Roose Bolton had fought for Robb since the calling of the banners. He was no fool. He was measured, obedient, cold, and useful. Catelyn had never liked him. That alone meant little. She had disliked many men who served well. Yet there was something in Roose that seemed to drink warmth from a room. He spoke softly, so men leaned close. He did not boast. He did not rage. He looked at other men as if imagining the weight of their skins. What to Bolton? Brynden asked. Tell him to continue holding Harrenhal as long as useful, but to send a full account of his strength and losses. I want his position clear before we move north. Good, Catelyn said. Robb noticed. You mistrust him. Yes. Why? Because he never seemed surprised. Greyjohn barked laughter. That's true enough. Robb smiled faintly, then sobered. He has served me. So had Theon. The name fell hard. Robb looked down. I am sorry, Catelyn said. Do not be. I think it every hour. He rose abruptly. I will see Jane. No one stopped him. When he had gone, Edmure sagged back into his chair. Gods, we are a cheerful council. Brynden poured himself wine. Cheerful councils are for doomed kings and summer fools. Which are we? Ask me after the twins. Catelyn went to the window. The moon was high over the rivers, turning the water pale. Somewhere in the castle a woman laughed once, quickly hushed. Somewhere else a man prayed. Beneath them all Jaime lived in chains, and because he lived, perhaps Robb would too. The thought should have comforted her. Instead it made her wonder whether the gods had a taste for bitter bargains. In King's Landing, far beyond the rivers and roads and ruined fields, Tyrion Lannister received the first careful feeler 3 weeks later. It did not come under Robb's seal. That would have been too simple and too dangerous. It came through a merchant who owed coin to a Gulltown factor who sometimes dealt with a Braavosi who had once arranged discreet ransoms during Robert's rebellion. By the time the message reached the capital, it had been folded through enough hands that no single one knew the whole shape of it. Yet, Tyrion was clever. Tyrion saw shapes. The message said only that the king in the north held a hostage of immense value and wished to know whether the hand of the king's son considered certain exchanges possible under seal and witness. Tyrion read it in his solar with Podrick Payne trying not to look curious and Bronn looking curious without shame. "Well?" Bronn asked. Tyrion turned the parchment over, though nothing was written on the back. "Someone thinks I am either honest, desperate, or insufficiently loved." "Which one?" "All three, on a good day." He burned the parchment. That night, he went to see Sansa Stark. She stood when he entered, courteous as a prisoner trained by fear becomes courteous. She had grown thinner since the court first devoured her songs. Her beauty had sharpened. She looked like a girl carved carefully from snow and taught that warmth was dangerous. "My lord," she said. "My lady." Tyrion glanced around. Servants, always servants. Cersei's eyes, Varys' ears, Littlefinger's ghosts. "I wondered whether you required anything." "No, my lord. Everyone requires something." She looked at him then, cautious. "News, perhaps." He hated that, perhaps. The smallness of it. The way she asked for crumbs as if feasts were treason. "From the Riverlands?" he asked. Her composure tightened. "If there is any. Riverrun stands. Your brother lives. Your mother lives." "Nah." Her lips parted. She looked very young. And Tyrion hesitated. Hope was a knife. He had seen men bleed out from less. "And my brothers?" she asked. The room was full of ears. "I have heard nothing certain," he said. Her eyes lowered. She understood court speech well enough now to know that nothing certain often meant nothing kind. Tyrion wanted to tell her more. That Jaime lived. That Robb held him. That perhaps the world had not yet finished arranging its cruelties. But secrets given too soon became snares. So he bowed and left her with less comfort than she deserved. In his own chamber, he found Shay lounging on his bed and asking why he looked like a man who had swallowed a thorn bush. He told her some lie. He could not remember which. Later, when she slept, he sat by the window and thought of Jaime chained in a northern cell, laughing at danger because that was what Jaime did when fear came too near. He thought of his father's face if he knew. He thought of Cersei's. He thought of Sansa asking for news with a prisoner's manners. Then he began to plan a reply that said yes without saying anything at all. Back at Riverrun, the reply would not arrive for many days. In those days, the castle remained balanced on the edge of knives. Robb drilled men in the yard. Jane learned when to speak and when silence served him better. Edmure prepared himself with noble misery for marriage to a girl he did not know. Bryndon's spies watched Karstark's door and found too many men walking past it slowly. Brienne slept in pieces, armored more often than not. Catelyn wrote letters, read letters, burned some, sealed others, and prayed when prayer would not be noticed. Jaime endured. He asked for books and was refused. He asked for wine and was laughed at. He asked for better conversation and received Brienne, which amused him until it did not. "You hate me," he told her one night as she stood outside the bars. "Yes," she said, "but you keep me alive." "Yes. Honor is a strange disease. Better than yours." "And what disease is mine?" she thought before answering. That irritated him. Men and women at court answered too quickly, eager to wound or flatter. Brienne answered as if truth mattered. "Emptiness," she said. Jaime laughed, but later, when the torch burned low and the cell settled around him, he found the word waiting. Emptiness. He thought of Cersei. He thought of Tyrion. He thought of his father, who would move heaven, earth, and 1,000 corpses to retrieve him. Not because he was loved in any soft sense, but because a stolen lion was an insult no Lannister could permit. He thought of Bran falling, with the small sound the boy had made when shoved. He had buried that sound under years of mockery and swordplay in Cersei's hands, but Riverrun's damp brought many buried things back to the surface. When Brienne came with his morning water, he said, "I do not hate you." She looked at him as if he had thrown something. "I did not ask." "No." You are bad at asking. Have you noticed? She set the water down and turned to leave. Wench. She stopped, shoulders stiff. Brienne, he said. That made her turn. He did not know why he had said it. Perhaps because emptiness disliked being named. Tell Lady Stark, he said, that if she writes my brother, she should mention lemon cakes. Brienne frowned. What? One? Tyrion will understand. Is it a code? It is a memory. That sounds like a code. It can be both. She stared at him. He smiled. Do you ever tire of suspicion? No. Good. It suits your face. She left without thanking him. He sat back against the wall, listening to the lock turn. Lemon cakes. Sansa.I. Tyrion would understand enough, perhaps. Or misunderstand brilliantly. His brother was good at that. For the first time since Catelyn had chosen not to free him, Jaime wondered whether chains might move men farther than horses. The message from Tyrion came in the belly of a cask of sour wine. It arrived with a trader from Maidenpool who complained so loudly about ruined roads, broken wheels, outlaw tolls, and river mud that no one paid much attention to the casks themselves. Riverrun had received poorer wine in better barrels before. The kitchen steward cursed the vintage, marked it for soldiers, and might have sent the whole thing to the common stores had one of Brendan's watchers not noticed the mark burned near the rim. 3 small cuts shaped like a crooked ladder. By afternoon, the cask sat in Hoster's solar, unopened but examined by half the council as if it might leap up and declare for Joffrey. Poison, Edmure said. Too obvious, Brendan replied. Wildfire. In a wine cask? Is that impossible? With Lannisters? No. With this smell, even wildfire has pride. Robb looked at Catelyn. You expected something? I hoped for something. From whom? Catelyn hesitated only a heartbeat. Tyrion. The room did not erupt, but it hardened. Greyjohn scowled. The imp? Lord Tyrion, Catelyn said. He's still a Lannister. Yes. Robb's expression was unreadable. You wrote him? Not by name, not under seal. I asked whether certain exchanges might be possible. My command was Jaime stays, and he has stayed. You should have told me. Yes. The admission checked him. Anger prefers resistance. Guilt offered cleanly leaves it nowhere easy to go. Catelyn continued. If there is a path to Sansa that does not free Jaime blindly, we must know it. Robb looked at the cask. And you trust Tyrion? No, duh. I trust that he may dislike his family's cruelties when they inconvenience him. I trust that he was falsely accused once because I believed too quickly. I trust that he is clever enough to see value in being less monstrous than Cersei. Ow. That is thin trust. It is not trust. It is use. Brendan smiled faintly. There is my niece. The cask was opened by men who expected death and found wine, bad enough to be nearly an attack. Inside, sealed in waxed leather beneath a false bottom, was a small packet. No Lannister seal. No name. Just a parchment written in a careful hand. Robb read it first. His face changed once at the beginning, then not again. He handed it to Catelyn. The letter did not say Jaime. It did not say Sansa. It spoke instead of falcons, lions, and a red-haired bird kept in a gilded room. It said the bird remained alive, but watched by cats, dogs, and one particularly vain stag cub with claws. It said a smaller lion had no wish to see the bird's neck wrung, though his wishes did not command the kennel. It said a golden falcon in a river cage could not yet be exchanged, because too many hunters waited to shoot both bird and falcon if either flew too soon. It advised patience, secrecy, and proof of life. It ended with one strange line. Lemon cakes are remembered. Catelyn read that line twice. What does it mean? Robb asked. Jaime told Brienne to mention it. Robb's eyes sharpened. When? Before this arrived. He said Tyrion would understand. Greyjohn looked disgusted. Are all lions poets now? No, Brynden said. This one is a juggler. Catelyn held the parchment carefully. Sansa alive. Watched. Endangered but alive. The relief was so fierce it nearly made her knees weaken. Alive was a kingdom. Alive was a dawn. Alive was not safe. Not free. Not healed. But it was not dead. Robb saw it in her face. He says, wait, he said. He says exchange is watched. He says Joffrey is dangerous. We knew that. He says proof of life. How? They looked at one another. Catelyn thought of Sansa's hand, her careful letters from King's Landing after Ned's death, each one wrong in the way a song, sung by someone with a knife to her throat, would be wrong. She thought of sewing lessons, lemon cakes, songs of Florian and Jonquil, all the small things that belonged to a girl before court stripped them away. She must write something only I would know, Catelyn said. How do we ask? Through the same road. Brynden frowned. Roads walked twice are easier to follow. Then a different road with the same destination, Robb said. Manderley has ships. Lannister has gulls. Gulltown merchants still trade. We send no seal, no names. Edmure looked from one to the other. We are conspiring with a Lannister while holding another Lannister from execution by our own bannermen, and apologizing to Freys for a broken marriage pact. Fair summary, Brynden said. No wonder my head hurts. Robb set the letter down. Mother, next time you reach for such a thread, tell me before you pull. I will. Not because you are wrong, because if it snaps, I need to know where the blade falls. She bowed her head. Yes, Your Grace. He winced. Do not do that. You are my king. I am also your son. That is why I must do it. He had no answer to that. The days that followed became a strange season of preparation and distrust. Walder Frey's answer came wrapped in courtesy and teeth. He accepted the proposed amends in principle, praised Edmure's noble spirit, named Roslyn with suspicious eagerness, and invited Robb to the twins to mend friendship beneath his roof. The phrase "beneath my roof" appeared twice. Guessed right implied. Guessed right advertised. Guessed right, Catelyn thought, used like a painted shield held before a pit. Roose Bolton replied from Harrenhal with exact numbers, exact losses, exact obedience. Too exact. He offered counsel in his pale, careful hand. The Freys must be appeased. The North must be reclaimed swiftly. And the King's lair must not be risked in any movement while the Riverlands remained unstable. That last line interested Robb. He wants Jaime kept here, Robb said. Or wants us to believe he does, Brynden replied. Would Bolton sell us? Greyjohn snorted. For what? A colder castle and worse neighbors? Men have sold more for less, Catelyn said. Robb looked toward the window. Theon did. No one spoke against that. A second conspiracy around Jaime was not found. That made Brynden more suspicious, not less. Karstark remained under guard, obeying every command in the letter and none in spirit. His men no longer muttered where Tully ears could hear. Instead, they grew polite. Politeness, Brynden said, was often only treason with clean boots. Brienne continued guarding the lower stair. Jaime continued needling her until she learned when to ignore him, and when to answer plainly enough to leave him with no purchase. Their conversations became a kind of duel. You know, he said one damp afternoon, if you took me south, songs might be made of you. I do not want songs. Everyone wants songs. You are in many. Has it improved you? He laughed at that. Another day he asked, do you think Lady Stark would truly kill me if her daughter died? Yes. No hesitation. No. Would you help her? Brienne stood silent long enough that he looked up. If justice required it, she said, and if vengeance required it, then I would pray she knew the difference. Jaime considered her. Do you? I try. What a tedious life you must lead. What an empty one you must. There was that word again. He began to hate it. Robb spent more and more time over maps of the Neck. Moat Cailin became an obsession at the edge of every council. The Ironborn held it, and while they did, the road north was a throat with a blade in it. Robb spoke of crannogmen, hidden paths, barges, feigned retreats, messages to Howland Reed that might or might not find him among bogs and trees. He wanted home with a hunger that made him seem younger, not older. "We take the crossing," he said one night, finger tracing the road from Riverrun to the Twins and beyond. "We mend Frey pride, we gather strength, we pass the Neck, we break the Ironman, then Winterfell." Winterfell. The word changed every Stark face in the room, and Catelyn felt its pull as if the stones themselves called her. Winterfell burned, but stones could be raised. Godswood survived. Crypts endured. If Bran and Rickon were truly gone, then Winterfell became not only home, but grave. If somehow they were not, she crushed that thought quickly. Hope without food became madness. "And Jaime?" Edmure asked. "Riverrun," Robb said. "With me." Edmure looked startled. "You will return with your bride after the wedding. Riverrun must be held. Jaime must be guarded. The Blackfish remains until the prisoner can be moved safely or exchanged properly." Brynden nodded. "Good." Edmure swallowed. "So I marry a Frey girl, bring her here, and spend my wedding months guarding the Kingslayer." Greatjon grinned. "Better than bedding a Frey at the Twins forever." Edmure looked as if that had not comforted him. Catelyn said, "I will go with Robb to the Twins." Robb's head turned sharply. "No, day. Yes. I need you at Riverrun. You need eyes at the Twins that know when courtesy smells wrong. I have lords. You have men who will drink when told the wine is sweet." Greatjon looked offended. "Some of us know bad wine." "Not after the 5th cup," Brynden said. Robb frowned. "If there is danger, I would have you away from it. If there is danger, I would be near you." "Mother, my king," she said, and the title stopped him. "You cannot ask others to give sons and brothers to your road while hiding your mother from risk." His eyes hardened with pain. "I can ask anything if it keeps you alive." "You can. I will refuse." The council watched them. Neither mother nor son wanted witnesses for love when love had to wear armor. At last Robb said, "You will not leave my side at the Twins. I am unlikely to wander off with Walder Frey." That won a rough laugh from Greatjon and even a reluctant smile from Robb. So the shape of the next road was set. Riverrun would hold Jaime. Edmure would wed Rosalind. Robb would apologize under the roof of the man he had insulted. Catelyn would watch every face. Brynden would remain wary. Karstark would be contained. Tyrion's secret thread would be kept alive but not pulled hard enough to snap. Tywin Lannister, wherever he sat, would be forced to consider the life of his golden son before blessing any slaughter too openly. On the morning before the first parties began preparing for the ride to the Twins, Catelyn went one last time to Jaime's cell. Brienne opened the door for her, then remained just inside as always. Jaime stood when Catelyn entered. "Lady Stark, come to say farewell?" "Not farewell. I am not leaving forever." "How disappointing. I hope to pine." "You gave Brienne a message for your brother." "I gave her nonsense. Clever men love nonsense. It lets them feel useful." Tyrion answered. Jaime's face changed despite himself. "Fast, but not fast enough." "He lives," Catelyn said. "My brother has made a habit of it. He says Sansa lives." Jaime looked away then, and in that small turn she saw relief he would not name. "Good," he said. "You care?" He smiled at the wall. "Do not spread vile rumors. You care because Tyrion cares. I care because dead girls make poor bargaining pieces." "Liar." He looked back at her, amused and irritated. "You come to my cell to insult me? I come to tell you that your life continues to protect hers. Remember that if you think to aid escape." "I think of escape," Constantly. I know. Think also of Sansa. That is cruel. Yes. For once he laughed without mockery. There may be a lion in you, Lady Stark. There is a mother. Lions should fear the difference. He bowed his head slightly. Where do you go? To the twins. Jaime's smile faded. Frey. Yes. Take men who dislike music. Catelyn went still. Brienne looked between them. What does that mean? Catelyn asked. It means old men who feel mocked often hire singers to pretend they are merry. Is that warning or jest? With Freys? Both. She studied him. Do you know something? I know Lord Walder wanted a crown in his bed and got a trout. I know my father will hear of every slight and weigh every knife within reach. I know Roose Bolton's eyes look dead even when the rest of him moves. I know guest right is a fine custom until someone decides the gods are less frightening than victory. Nah, Patirvi, Anim, Isay, Ibki, Tabisar. Catelyn's skin prickled. Then you believe we should not go. I believe you have no choice. That is why it is a trap even if no one set one. The words followed her from the cell. She carried them through the corridors, past guards and servants and men oiling tack for the road. Outside, Robb stood in the yard with gray wind, speaking to Jane in low tones. The girl was not going to the twins. That much had been decided. Her presence would be salt rubbed into Frey pride until it bled. She tried to be brave about it, but Catelyn saw the fear in how tightly she held Robb's hand. Robb kissed her brow. Not like a king, like a boy leaving something fragile behind. Catelyn looked toward the towers, the rivers, the road beyond the gate. In the cell below, Jaime lived. In King's Landing, Sansa lived. At the twins, Walder Frey waited. And somewhere beyond maps and ravens, Tywin Lannister was thinking. The war had become a hall of locked doors. Behind one was home. Behind one was ruin. Behind one was a daughter's life. Behind one was a son's death. Catelyn did not know which key she held anymore, only that the golden one beneath Riverrun had not been thrown away. When Robb called for the horses, she mounted beside him. The gates of Riverrun opened. The king in the north rode toward the crossing he needed, beneath banners damp from river mist, with his mother at his side and his enemy alive behind him.